And welcome, everybody. Welcome to season one, episode 5, the home opening series show that we're now presenting to you. I am Gonzo, led to with Jay, Justin Lee from Bad Guy Radio, and Ozzy Guillen Jr. Boys, both of you were at the game yesterday. I know it was a sad moment for Justin, and Ozzy really has a
Sad
smile.
moment. Justin was
is
not
sad.
sad. He was stuffing his face. He was not sad. He was mad. I don't think he was sad. That place was packed, man. There's a lot of beers being sold.
Yeah.
The White Sox fans are like the new crappy version of the Raiders fans. Everybody like wears black now. That's the feel I got for it. I think people are having fun. You know what? If you're ever gonna give up 4 home runs and you're in the stadium, might as well do it on opening day. I don't think people are like, yeah, whatever. Like we lost. We're gonna lose 60 anyways. If we lose on opening day, like I think people would have been more mad if it was like a Tuesday in like late April and it's like 35 degrees weather and it's like raining. I really felt that the vibe was pretty good into the stadium, even though it took people forever to get in, which I saw people were a little bit upset about that. But tailgating looked awesome. People were excited. They were pumped. And I don't think the feel wasn't that much of like a Kool-Aid feel as I had gone in previous opening days. Like people are like being a little bit more realistic, on the season and like what they're judging and kind of like not just thinking they're going to be great because there's great players on paper potential wise. So that was kind of cool. And again, I'm always there. I always love opening days.
Yeah. One thing's for sure. I thought for sure Kopech was going to go into that game and have himself an outing. That is furthest from the truth. And again, you two were there at the game, so let's start that off with the topic of this opening topic of this show. Let's talk about Michael Kopech. We know his last start of spring training versus the Cubs didn't go as we really wanted it to go for his last start of spring training, and that kind of carried over to the opening game here of the series at home. Now, when I go back and look at highlights again, I didn't watch the game. I wasn't there either. But it didn't seem like his stuff was that bad.
The stuff was crisp. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
Gonzo, we were talking about it before the show. Like, I had a good vantage point. I was sitting like probably about 50 feet to Benintendi's left and center. And left. So I had a good look right into the catcher's mitt, and none of his breaking balls were rolling. Like I told you, he only threw probably 2 bad breaking balls, and that was the double to Yastrzemski and the home run to Thairo Estrada. The fastball was crisp. He was sitting up at 95. It had nice late movement. I think the Giants knew what was coming. Because if you look at the hacks, this is not a power-laden team. Now, like the Jock Petersons and the Confortos, yeah, they've hit over 20 home runs before, but let's just be fucking honest here. I'm not pitching around anybody in a Giants uniform. They took some healthy hacks. So it to me, I'm just going to take the easy way out and say that probably tipping some pitches there.
Yeah. Probably. Junior, what did you think about? You think Kopech was tipping his pitches? What did you really see when you were there? Because I think Jay was on some alcohol, so he probably didn't get the clearest shot.
I usually like watching more on TV because I usually can get it right. He saw. You know what? He's a 100% right. So the first thing when he came out, you see guys usually batting. My seats were actually right by the bullpen, and his bullpen looked, like it wasn't nothing like on the bullpen session that you're like, oh, it doesn't look like Kopech, like normal bullpen session for him. Great first inning. I think that the way, again, this is coming from experience of just being around the game, bad boying, and just watching baseball enough. When a guy, 2 walks and the guy goes deep, it happens. You left something hanging. Could have been a bad pitch you left in the zone. That happens. But when you get teed off 4 times in 1 inning, I don't think trash can. That's not where I'm going, but I'm thinking they know what's coming. Okay. Yeah. And the game is a little different. Had this been like 1989, 88, I could see Kopech drilling the third guy after the second guy went deep, brush somebody off the plate, but that's not the game that you play now at all. But that's something that would have happened because I thought, and this is where I don't put it so much on Kopech. This is at the moments where I'm like, okay, what's Ethan Katz and his assistant doing? I hope that someone's catching it, okay? Because there's 700 video cameras on there, and they're saying, hey, fix it either after the game or like even in the game. Like if you catch anything off with your pitcher, you have to go. That's why you have like mound visits, and I felt like that didn't really happen. And it was just a horrible inning. It was just a really bad combination, to be honest, of like the Sox bullpen had been kind of taxed the previous games, and Michael had to kind of like wear it. And it was just a really bad inning. So I know Grifol didn't want to leave him out there just out and dry, but at that moment you need to know you just got to suck it up and just be able to battle through. But that was my point. They were looking very comfortable at the plate. It wasn't like a cheap home run that you usually see like an Oppo.
Yeah, no, they took some hacks, Junior.
They were hitting some BP. It was like a BP
was square.
Like people are like, oh my God, some like you see me hitting in batting practice. You're like, Ozzie Jr. is a top prospect. No shit, the ball, you know where it's coming. I'm being serious, dude. Batting practice is the worst. Like if you're good, you can lie like yourself, like that you're a good baseball player in batting practice. Like you know that it's coming, and that's how these guys look like when they were hitting. Because it's a comfort thing. They look like every single hack they were taking. And there's the other part, not just the guys that hit the home runs. Go look back at the tape. Even the guys that got themselves out, it's like a comfortable out. Like they were swinging like, you got me out because it wasn't my day. But they were very comfortable at the plate. And I'm going to be honest, I don't care I'm not talking about success. And this is something that Gonzo always talks about. One thing's success on the field and one thing's being nasty. Michael Kopech is not a guy that you're comfortable at the plate. He's not Lance Lynn. He's not Mark Burley. Michael Kopech, you're not comfortable. He's a little erratic. Sometimes misses a zone. You don't want to get hit with 94, 95 plus, maybe a little harder. So the way that these guys were that comfortable on the plate tells me that he might have been tipping his pitches or something was happening that gave them an advantage.
Yeah. And there's one thing, Justin, on Twitter, and this question I want to give to you is, how did you feel Grifol handled him later on in his outing with Kopech, not knowing, what bullpen arms he really had available after the Houston series with what seems like we're starting to be babysitting again, the bullpen. But how did you feel? Do you feel like he went the length of time that you felt like was right, or was he a better two away? He could have gone deeper, pulled earlier. What were you thinking?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it was a collision course for disaster from the jump. You put Michael Kopech in a situation to where it's a fast break offense, and the mistakes are piling up. Okay, there's no way to break the Giants' momentum. You don't want to waste your mound visits on a situation like that. It's not like he wasn't throwing strikes. It wasn't like he didn't have his good stuff. His changeup was devastating, and he only threw like 2 or 3 of them. So he had a 4-pitch mix working within the first inning and a third. So if you're going to tell me Michael Kopech with 4 working pitches is going to have to get babysat through an inning because he's throwing home runs, I can't tax my bullpen, especially when it's thin. It's the first game of the series. Like I had, you know what? Without further ado, let's get into the manager side of things because I'm about to start cooking, Gonzo. Grifol's grounds, people.
I don't have a problem making decisions. I don't have a problem making a call on a pitcher. I don't have a problem making a call on whatever our team needs at this particular moment.
Yeah, like the bullpen is thin already. We're missing Liam. We're missing Crochet. People are knee-jerking saying we need to go sign guys like Corey Knebel to a minor league deal for what? You have automatic. Your bullpen gets automatically better in 4.5 weeks. Think about that. Why would you do a knee-jerk reaction just because you've seen your 5th starter give up consecutive home runs when, in fact, the manager was handcuffed. He can't stop the momentum. You can't do the mound visits. He's hitting his spot. So it's like, what the fuck do you want me to do? I don't know. OJ, am I missing something here? What's wrong?
The panic button is a little live. Okay. You were expecting this type of outing from Clevenger. I know half of the White Sox fans were hoping that it was Clevenger, just so they could enjoy themselves a little bit more. But again, when you have 5 starters, somebody's always going to be a little off. Okay, it's very hard to get all 5 guys clicking on all cylinders. If not, teams would win 140 games. So to see Michael again, if it's not a velocity thing and it's something that can be fixed, again from a strategy standpoint, I don't see a concern. From the guys in the bullpen like Ruiz, you need to be careful of like when you make a move and send a guy down, because hopefully when you send him down, you have to have a plan. Like when you send someone down, it's not because this guy sucks, send him down. It's like, no, this guy needs help. We want him in the future. Let's get him to AAA to kind of find himself, especially pitchers. And whoever comes up has to be in the situation, has to be in that situation. But 1 week in, if we had been like a month in, I can see the Ruiz move happening like ASAP. I saw people already talking about Grifol to bench Elvis Andrus, release him, and bring up Sosa. And it's like they could have just done that in the beginning of spring training and save money, but you guys were all mad and you wanted Elvis. You said to make TA the second baseman and move Elvis to short, but one bad week. It's just, so that part's just confusing. I think they're just pressing the panic button. I don't think Grifol was late. You know, I'm going to be honest with you, man. Pedro Grifol, I'm not comparing him to Tony, because Tony La Russa at that point had like 45 years of big league managing, World Series. I'm not judging him to Ozzie, maybe comparing him to Ozzie's first year. Renteria, I'm comparing him to his first year. If you ask me Renteria, his first year versus his last year, he got worse as a manager, honestly. So I think Pedro, for him being there, a couple of challenge calls, a couple of things here that you could say, he might have done different, but it's not growing pains, but I'm not judging him like he's been managing this bullpen for that long. He made the moves. Okay, the moves didn't pan out. If Ruiz had done well, we would have been like Grifol is a genius. Okay, Ruiz just came from pitching really well in the WBC. He was the number 1 pitcher for them in the pen. Maybe he just gets scared of wearing the White Sox jersey and he's still wear the Venezuelan jersey. But so when people are like, "Oh,
there you go,"
I'm just saying though, maybe he didn't know he was a high leverage guy. Again, Grifol was in that situation. He's trying to find a pitcher. He's trying to make a pitcher. If Ruiz does well, it fixes a lot of problems. Again, you wait for Crochet. So again, is any manager going to manage perfect? No, but I think that he's done a great job. I think the only thing that I don't put it on him, the challenging part, the challenge calls, whoever's telling him from the inside, go challenge. Some of these challenges have been awkward. Like for me, you have to challenge something that's like really like a home run early in the game, but like save your challenge for like later because you might get a weird play. You might need it. That was the only thing. I'm not a fan of Bennett of Benny hitting third. I'm just not. When I'm looking at a lineup, anybody but him, except Sevy. I saw somebody use Zavala as a third hitter. I just don't see him as a 3-hole. But they have a strategy. It's working for Moncada. He's doing great, so I'm not complaining. That's the only thing. But again, he has a strategy why he's doing it. But that's the only thing that I can argue on that. And then on guys getting rest, man, he's treading waters. He doesn't want to go out there and tell guys, "Hey, I'm going to play you till you melt and till you."
They want everybody to be. What's my boy Jimmy Cordero, whose arm literally fell off.
Yeah, he also wants to like not piss anybody off. So like the Vaughn rest, and he wants guys to say, again, those are things that little by little these guys are going to have to start changing their mentality themselves. It's a pride thing, man. I really believe that when you play 150 games in the big leagues plus, it's more of a mental thing. It's more of like it's like when you work out, like you work out at 4 a.m, 5 a.m. Like you like working out, but no one likes to work out every day at 4 a.m. Like you have to get up and you make yourself just because you're that committed. That's how I feel like it is in the big leagues. Like you could easily play 100 games, 110 games. Anything above that, it's like you have to get yourself to be like, okay, like I've played 4 in a row, 5 in a row. Like I don't need this rest. I really think that the guys that take it to the level is a mental thing, and Pedro can show them how to get there. And I think if Pedro Grifol was a player, I think he'd try to play every single game. Compare like with Ozzie, that was his mentality. I think that's something that they can teach you, but at the end, you have to want that. So that's where that difference is going to be. So I've liked the team, how they've looked. I liked his answer. I know we're talking about the last game. I think his answer for the Joan Moncada situation, I really liked it. Because he basically said, do I know it's a dumb play? Absolutely. But I asked Moncada, what was he thinking? And he said, I thought I could have third. Okay. If Grandal tells you that, you're like, are you an idiot? Because your speed's not great. a guy like Moncada where he uses his legs, he is feeling good. You try to tell him like, maybe next time stay in second because of the situation on the outs, but you never want to take a player's aggressiveness away, especially if that's something that makes them better. So I think he handled the answer great in the media, that he's actually talking to the players of what that thought process was. And if one of the things I critiqued in previous coaching staffs, and not just Tony, but Rick Renteria, was I believe when there's the people you're developing a team, it's not just about the wins and the losses. It's like when someone makes a mistake, is someone going up to that player and talking to him and saying, so I've seen it a couple of times. Colas had a horrible at bat, and after the at bat with the bases loaded, Robert was talking to him. Okay, so it doesn't always have to be a coach. It's like, hey man, what were you thinking? And it's like sometimes you, as a player, you tell him what the mistake was because you're telling him, oh, I was over aggressive or I was trying to go deep, and you're like that. Yeah, you should probably not be thinking that. So I really like that you're hearing that the coaches are talking. Oh yeah, we talked to the third base coach. We talked to Moncada. What were you thinking? That's going to make them better players because next time Moncada goes up, he's probably going to look at the outs and say, okay, I'm leading off the inning. If I better know for sure it's a stand-up triple, I'm not going to get myself thrown out. That's learning how to play. I think that's something that's been missing the last couple of years.
Yeah, I feel like we just covered Game 5, the home opener, the lackluster game of it. We did a good job breaking that down. Let's go back to that Houston series, which is where Ozzy was just leaving off at. Let's talk about these 4 games. I got some notes here, and let's start with the first game. And again, you were just talking about Yo-Yo making that out after that double at third base, which after the game, which you alluded to, Junior, that Grifol said that as long as his runners are making the most out of their opportunities, if they have a valid reason for their decisions, he is perfectly fine with those decisions that they're making in the moment. And that next part of it, which again, I know like everyone was just slandering Moncada for that, but we got to see after the game him cover that. And I did feel good about him covering that in the media, which is what you just said, Junior. I agree with you on that. And the next part, which I know, Junior, you tweeted about it. I believe it was a tweet. Maybe it was in the group chat with us, but you were saying how in that 7th frame with Cease when he was dominating and he let up a base hit, or was it 2 base hits? I can't remember how the 2 guys got on, but then, he got pulled and he brings in Bummer, and you brought up like, why didn't you just let Cease deal with the opportunity there to get out of it on his own accord than to bring in Bummer, who ends up throwing a wild pitch in the dirt, and then the Houston goes up 1-0 in the game. And then we also saw Lopez for the first time come in for the save opportunity and gives up a couple runs, but they end up winning by 3-2. So, and again, like even though Lopez still has that stuff that we've seen from last year, it's different coming in as a closer with that mindset you have to close out these games. And we'll see if that's something that he can grasp the opportunity here in the upcoming weeks before Liam comes back. But guys, what did you think about Game 1? And then I'll lead us to the next game. But what were your thoughts on that first game?
So Dylan Cease was nasty. I think that if they let Dylan, I don't think any pitcher in Major League Baseball has worked the clock better than Dylan. I love the fact that they let him call his pitches. He was on point. His rhythm was great. Really good stuff from him. On him getting pulled out, it had not been Dylan, I think that I would have been 100% okay. Again, I'm biased when it comes to Dylan, but it's first game of the year. He's giving you a lot, and you have a great bullpen. Like on paper, you got guys that can get the stuff out. And the whole Bummer thing, he didn't get hit. He just threw a bad breaking ball pitch that couldn't be blocked, kind of like a wild pitch. So it wasn't more of like an effectiveness. But I'm going to be honest, other than the people are thinking right now, the last game they're thinking about is the San Francisco BP day. Okay. We said it here on the show. People thought we were optimistic that they were going to split the series. They could have won the series had a couple little things gone a little different for them, but they split a series against a very good Houston Astros team in their home opener. So that series, they tell you, hey, you're going to split a series versus the Astros in the offseason. You're like, I take it. So I like that fact that they were competing. It wasn't like they didn't compete in any of the games. They won and they fell back, and then they came back and tied the series at least. And that's what you want on the road. So that's what I liked. I like Cease, the way that he went about it. Game 1, he kind of set the tone. And he shut down a very good offense. And I don't think that offense woke up till like halfway to games 2 because they were really off beat. So, and again, I think that probably one of the better series that we've seen the last couple of years on execution, even though there was a couple things like other runners on scoring position and we left this and we left that. Man, this is not a team that lost in the World Series and you have little problems to fix. There's a lot of problems little by little. So I think that there was more positive than negatives.
And I want to piggyback off that with Cease. Now there's two. I said in the beginning of 22 that Cease has that potential to become the ace within that year. And that was a huge thing for me to say at the time, but ended up being part of that. And now I'm at that stage where I think there's only two things that's keeping him from elite status, and that's one, his walks, and two, his pitch efficiency and within his pitch counts, which when you see in his first start of the season versus the best lineup in the American League, he didn't allow any walks in those 6 innings, and he struck out 10. So he's 10 strikeouts to none. And with his pitch counts, he finished at 86 pitches within going into that 7th frame. So it's just crazy to believe at where he's at right now. If he can continue that through the stretch of this season, he's well on his way to where he wants to be in this league, especially in the American League where he was runner-up.
I'll give you an example, man. Like Marcus Stroman, you can see the amount of money that he's getting paid, and elite pitcher. Barrios at one point, and you see how far Cease has come, like what he's doing. He is doing one of the hardest things to do in baseball, especially today, because he's a perfectionist. You see Cease, and he get himself so deep in counts because he wanted to strike out with the perfect pitch. He's pitching a contact I love when pitchers get ahead of batters, not only get ahead, but then they just go off and finish them. Okay. I love the fact that he didn't treat everybody like he was Jordan Alvarez. And that's sometimes what you have to do. And that's a level of confidence of when you look up and you look at the player, you're not getting intimidated. And he's doing that. I think from the 2 years ago, like when he got here, you saw the talent. He has great stuff, but like, did he believe that he had that great stuff? I really think that he really believes that in any given day he can just dominate you. And that doesn't mean he's going to win every single game. But that level of confidence, I really like it because that's going to, with his God-given ability and that level of confidence, that just becomes a very dangerous pitcher. That's like a Mark Burley has like just nasty stuff because sometimes.
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys. Go ahead, OJ, yeah. But I'm going to be honest with you.
I'm just going to say like Lance Lynn, for example, like you see, like he's just a competitor. Like his stuff's not like Cease's stuff is like up there. And people that follow analytics can, that you can look at the velocity and the changes of speed. So that with confidence, that's how you get a top 3 Cy Young again.
One pitch that stuck out to me when Dylan Cease took the mound was the glove side fastball low and away to right-handed batters, low and in to left-handed. That's a focus pitch. That's something that you got to be dialed in to hit that mark as a right-handed pitcher every time. And he fucking stroked it every time. And he was making the calls. So for you to call a low and away fastball when it's time to put somebody away and you drill it right there, that lets me know he's all in and focused. Gonzo, the walks wasn't by accident. He was dispatching hitters. He was getting rid of guys. Like it was a lot of guys that were out when they were standing on deck against Dylan Cease.
Another thing I want to say in that interview that Foul Territory had with him and AJ, he made it really clear in that interview. He is starting to fall in love with this 4th pitch, his changeup, which he hasn't shown yet. And he said he hasn't shown it yet because of how much feel he has for his 2nd and 3rd pitch with that slider knuckle curve. And more specifically, how we know that slider was the best pitch last year. I mean, it's no joke that 47% whiff rate on it. It speaks for itself with the run value he had on that too. I think it was like 32 or something like that.
Yeah, negative 32.
Now, that knuckle curve in that first game, he had a 45.5% whiff rate on the knuckle curve. So if he's going to continue with that, with this slider, he can just dibble-dabble with that changeup when it comes time in the summer when he needs to start playing more with his pitches, getting deeper into the season. Now, I think Dylan speaks for himself, and we're going to move on here because we will come back to Dylan as he has a preview coming up this week. But game 2, 3, 4, I'm going to quickly go through this with you guys. Game 2, I think what stuck out, I think early on in the series, you saw Luis Robert just chasing everything, and then he let out, turning that around in the back half of that series into the home opener. But I think the bullpen obviously let one get away in that second game between Graveman and Diekman, and I think Diekman's going to have to turn himself around too, because I mean he only
his days are fucking numbered. Let's just be perfectly honest.
Pretty numbered with Crochet and Liam coming back hopefully sooner than later here. And game 3, I think what really stuck out to me was that moment, and another bullpen game that got away, but more particularly, I'll blame game 2 on the players and that bullpen. But for me, game 3, I got to put a little blame here on Pedro, because I really felt that Kelly was in the zone cooking with his stuff, and he only got hit hard, or not even hit hard, but it was an 0-2 poke by, our old trusty Pito that hit one in the hole. But like, other than that, like, Kelly was moving and grooving, and you bring Ruiz in for him to let that game get away. And I know that, we might say we might be babysitting, but I feel like we should allow Kelly to at least go one more batter into that outing. And then game 4, I think in the game 1, we had 2 opportunities with bases loaded early on, and Dylan couldn't get anything out of that to get a lead for him. But in game 4, again, we had bases loaded twice, and then end up pulling lead later in the game. But what do you guys think about those 3 games in particular? Anything jump out at you in those games?
Well, I just want to touch on Luis Robert, because me personally, I got to pump the fucking brakes on Luis Robert, because I'm already, I've tweeted earlier, like, we need to get Luis out of here, fire him into the sun. He's a very erratic and inconsistent player, to where he could look terrible one day and he could just flip the script the next. Even with his offensive inconsistencies in Houston, the glove was still platinum. The best routes to a baseball in the majors was put on display in left center field gap and right center field gap. So the fact that even though he had a hole in his bat this series, at some points, the glove never wavered. And that's a good sign for a young player, because usually they take their offensive struggles into the field with them. And Luis Robert has not been doing that. So that's what stuck out to me on that front. What about you, OJ?
Man, you know what? I think that from a standpoint, I think he's been playing great defense. Even when Colas was not getting those hits, he was making the plays with his glove. So again, split series. I think that with the Kelly move, you could go back and say, well, Grifol, could have stayed with Joe. I think that's the part where the first, I want to say 2 months, he's going to either succeed or be held accountable for not executing on those situations. Of maybe in a week, he's like, you know what, I'm sticking with Joe. I would have stuck with Joe Kelly, because I'm a believer that when Joe Kelly is on and healthy, you got to ride him, because he is going to get himself hurt. I'm just being honest. I just think you do, because I think he's going to get hurt. They're like, oh, we're saving him at 19 pitches. You can do all the saving of his arm. You can do everything you can at his age, his track record. He is going to go down at some point. So you ride him as much as you can. So then let him rest when he is.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I really do. I think that you just go out there and you use him as much as possible until, he breaks down and comes back. That's just the nature of it. So again, had he stayed in and he allows his own runs to come in, it's a little different story. And he's going to have to see, hoop from the pen. No one talks about this enough, man. It's not the same coming in with a clean inning than coming in with runners in scoring position. So he's going to realize who in the bullpen is that guy that can come in with a clean inning, and who's the guy that can come in with the runners in scoring position and hold them. That's something that they need to explore and find out very quickly, because, again, it's going to make the team better, because you're not going to have a shutdown game from the starters. But I liked what I saw the first game. 2 games of running on the bases was great. I mean, from a stolen base standpoint, I haven't seen the White Sox run as much in a long time. Guys are using their legs. I keep saying this. Tim Anderson can steal 30 bags in the big leagues. And the guy that was behind the plate for the Astros, if you can steal off Maldonado, you're stealing out of the top 2% of the league. There's maybe one guy better than him, if that, very hard. So if they're running on him, they're and the Astros, from an analytical perspective, they're very good at reading jumps, help Maldonado really well. So that was a really big plus, that I think that they're putting some pressure on the base pads, getting them going.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to touch back on the bullpen for a second because if you look at it, let's just take a look at what transpired. I mean, you were Graveman at one point couldn't throw a fucking strike. You had to rely on Aaron Bummer and Joe Kelly. Both are breaking ball pitchers, and let's just be honest, wild pitch prone. So, like when you have a situation to where his base is loaded and you got Diekman against Yordan Alvarez, what do you want your manager to do? Like Yordan Alvarez hits lefties and righties. Wouldn't you? I would rather go to a lefty to face Yordan than just have any other righty. And I understand Diekman is bottom of the barrel, but at the same time, you got to give yourself a chance. And I don't think we had any other option. I've seen a lot of people questioning the move on social media. I even got into a conversation with King Mac about it. Like, what do you want him to do? Like, you can only play with the cards you're dealt. Like, for Christ's sake, you can't go to Aaron Bummer back to back because he just came off the lat injury. You'll be right back to square one April 3rd or April 2nd. What are we doing here? So I think a couple of the challenges have irked me before we leave Pedro, but at the end of the day, you can't really question anything because he's only playing with the cards that are dealt. And I understand, OJ, we don't want Benintendi batting third, but he's showed during spring training that's going to be the plan. 2 right-handed hitters, and I'm going to squeeze the lefty in there. So, and then we want to talk about walks right now, but let's just get into some Stone Pony tweets because this is about to cook. So we had the resident beef loaf going at it with my boy Eric Wilson over the White Sox not walking enough. If you don't know, Beef Loaf's the king of the 108. And we got my boy Eric Wilson, the E in Ray's Juke Joint, super analytics. He actually ruined the game of baseball for me. So anyway.
Who's the analytical guy? Eric Wilson?
Eric Wilson, yeah. So in this exchange, we got Eric saying, you shouldn't look for walks to gauge the offensive, progression of the team because there are a lot of guys who got high contact rate swinging the bat. They're better swinging the bat than when not. And then Beef Loaf just going back with him saying that's just a product of a good process. How do you guys feel on building your offense around people that walk a lot?
So, and Eric Wilson's the analytical guy?
Yeah.
You know what? He's one of the guys by that comment. Don't know anything about him. I like the fact that he has his own picture on the avatar and has his own name. Doesn't have a weird random name. But I think that he's right. Okay, and this is why I mean that he's right. Walks are a product of when you cannot get a pitch that you hit, you work the count, and getting a walk is a win. But what you don't do is going up there thinking I am going to go walk. That's not a good approach. You can't. It's very hard to walk 4 guys to get a run in. You got to swing the bat. So I think that better at bats that will get you more walks. Like, for example, don't swing at a 3-0 pitch. That's just, only a few guys. You're not Barry Bonds. Frank Thomas, those guys get to swing 3-0. Meaning a guy had a couple walks right before you and you came up to hit and now you're swinging at the first pitch. There's things that you can do in the game to kind of like keep yourself out of that. But again, battling an at bat where you get a walk over a strikeout or an out, that's great. But he's right. You cannot base a success of an offense saying, well, we walked 300 more times than we did the year before. That's probably going to get you more runs, but does it really make your team better? And the fact that he's analytical and he gets that, that's huge because there's people on Twitter that love analytics that they praise a walk like, oh my, like I love Jasmani walking. I really do. I'd rather get a double or a home run because I know that it's going to take 2 hits to score him. So a walk is like, I like it, but again, I wish that you got a single and you were trying to go put that ball in that patio sign, because that's what he's really good at. So I really agree with Wilson. And even though, again, they're both making great points. One guy's excited because the walks are higher. I think last year the White Sox, one of the great disasters was that offensively they cannot hit, and then they couldn't get on base. And this year they're doing it so far at a better rate.
Yeah, how you feel about it, Gonzo?
Well, I'm just happy that eventually we're gonna have Eric on with us, and we'll have a little clash.
I don't want him on the show.
We'll have a little clash with Eric on our analytics side of it.
Wait, do numbers make your head hurt?
Yeah, the fucking numbers make my head hurt.
You know what, though? He looks like a guy that's giving you a point, and he's not arguing. That's why I said, he's a numbers guy. Okay, I'll give you this much. I consider Gonzo. I think Gonzo's numbers inclined. You can love I love the numbers, but you just cannot be blinded by the numbers. I'll give you a reason why Ozzy and Nick Swisher did not hit it off right off the bat, okay? Ozzy loved the fact that Nick Swisher got on base, and people get this wrong. But when Nick Swisher would come up to hit with bases loaded, Ozzy did not want him to see and take a close ball 4, okay? Like, he was like, we're good. I'm the manager. They don't like me. They hate the team. Like, you're going to get called out. Like, a game of inches, and I know that your eyes are great. Do that without runners in scoring position. I want you to hit that ball in the gap and get 2 RBIs. So there's a time and a place for the walk. And guys that are usually very, very analytically inclined, they believe that a walk is better than anything. Like, they're obsessed with it. They don't believe in bunting whatsoever. They don't believe in stolen bases. And they just go complete, like, anything that gives you a lesser chance of like winning a game or like something bad happening, they don't measure risk and reward. So that's when those guys that you can't even argue with them, that they're like, it's like, wait a minute. Like, if I got Eloy Jimenez, okay, and he's facing Class A, okay, and Eloy Jimenez is like 0 for 21 off of Class A, but we got Romy Gonzalez on the bench, and Romy's 5 for 5 with 5 RBIs. Do you think I'm going to pinch hit Romy Gonzalez for Eloy Jimenez?
No.
That's what an analytical person would tell you to do. But if you're a moron for doing that, and that's when the analytics completely takes over your brain, and you really have to see the situations, because the game is not played by boxers. So that's why I like the fact that if he is an analytical guy, he's being open to saying, hey, walks are great, but you still have to be effective. Gonzo says it. Yeah, was his stuff great? Great, but you still have to get outs. He said his Steez was amazing. He had great stuff. But the reason he wasn't elite was because he was walking too many guys versus a strikeout. So those are the conversations that you want to have with someone that likes the numbers. There's nothing worse than liking someone that likes the numbers, or someone that's completely old school, that they don't look at the other positive of whatsoever. That's the ones that are the worst on either side.
Well, let me show you something. Gonzo, you were a part of talking to somebody on the internet that are one of the worst. So Gonzo was pumping up my boy Dylan Cease after fucking mowing the Astros down like a crappy lawn. This guy is saying, don't count your chickens before they hatch in regards to Dylan Cease, Cy Young. He finished second last year, Gonzo. What the fuck is dude talking about?
Yeah, go ahead and put that second part of it up there too.
Yeah.
What did he say? This is like the king. This is like make me look like the most positive human being ever. Why is this guy even watching games?
Yeah, I mean, this guy, like, he was just wanting to say everything's dominant based off of not giving up any runs, but he was just using the shutout term so loosely, because there was no shutout in the opening day with all pitchers around baseball. No one went 9 innings for a shutout, I think even in this thread he gave me a whole list of even relief pitchers that didn't give up anything at all, and saying how, Cease wasn't dominant because he didn't he gave up 1 run that was based off of that bummer wild pitch. And
the bummer wild pitch is the reason Dylan Cease wasn't dominating.
He was including Stroman with saying that he was just as dominant in his outing, which I think in that national broadcast, they highlighted the 3 pitchers of the evening was Cease, Cole, and Ohtani, and Cease was the only one of those 3 that didn't even give up a walk. And then he brings up Luis Castillo with the Mariners performance. I think it was against Cleveland, but I'm like, I don't know how you argue this at this point, because it was just that terrible when, like, Cease clearly faced the best lineup in the AL, and through 6, he only gave up 1 run and struck out 10 on 86 pitches. Like, the guy was
if
just
Cease had given up 6, if Cease had given up 6, like my boy Plesac did yesterday, do you think this guy would have said, "Oh, it's okay, it's the first game of the season, you know, it's Cease, everybody else is getting shelled, it's okay, Cease is going to be fine"?
Absolutely not.
This is where fans, just like with Cease, like with Moncada, they don't want to see, because they hate a player so much, they don't want to see them succeed. With Clevenger, like, he is doing well. Like, someone got mad at me because I said 2 months ago we thought that this guy would never pitch baseball ever again. In his first outing, you think it's hard pitching in baseball is hard? Yes. Now think about pitching in baseball when you know half of your own fans hate you, think you're a scumbag human being. Like, that just puts that extra amount of pressure on you. The Cease start, if Cease pitches the way that he did, 75% of what he did, not even the whole 100, 75%, he's in a conversation again. He just, the reason that he is elite right now is because Stroman and all those guys, they're not coming off a season where they were number 2 in the Cy Young. So Cease is actually starting a conversation of, like, he's trying to put himself in a list of the Max Scherzer, the Verlanders of the world, that every single year they're on the list, the Garrett Coles, because they're in that status. So for a White Sox starter, okay, who we did not even know if he was going to be at this level, because we thought Jolito would be better than him. We thought a lot of guys would be progressing faster than him. The fact that he's even putting these numbers up and he's competing right off the bat this season, you got to be happy for him. Like, if you're a White Sox fan and you don't even get excited about Dylan Cease, like, how miserable are you as a White Sox? Like, if you can't get excited about Dylan Cease, what are you getting excited about? Because that is one of, like, the only positives that has come via trade, panning out, time, coming up, like, everything that they promise. He's been a guy that's been able to deliver on every single aspect of that.
Everything.
I'm saying that if you can't stay positive on Cease, like, my whole thing is, like, who are you staying positive on? And I feel so bad for you because I'm sure that guy doesn't even have a second team. That guy's just like that. He's just watching games being miserable, like, legitly.
Well, here, it's the perfect time to bring up a guy who has one fucking team.
And we are going to introduce our fan guests of this segment, our man, Brian Knights. He is on the red line, starting 9 of Barstool, and a paramedic during the day. He is also the former 2022 108 tourney champion. And he is drinking his Miller Lite right now as he gets into this segment with us. Brian, you're also a former leatherneck with me, so welcome to the show, man. I want you to tell us your thoughts first off on the first 5 games, and then we'll go from there. How you doing, Brian?
I'm wonderful. How are you, boys?
Better than you, Brian.
Depressed.
Cubs game, Brian. Get out of the way. What were you doing? I'm watching the game. I love Brian. I've actually was following him before I even knew anything about him because I love his content. But I'm like chilling, and then I see that everyone's like freaking out on Brian, like, what are you doing there? And he was like, it just enjoying himself at another baseball game. And he was getting
a lot of people were mad at me.
People were losing their shit. Like, legitly, people were like, what is he doing? I'm like, if people knew, like, that other people have other teams and they root and they wear other gear, like, they would. I think I would get killed on the streets.
The crazy thing is people were acting like I was in the bleachers actively rooting for the Cubs. Like,
you can really have a good time. Like, you can just go there.
I went to the game. I wore neutral stuff because I'm not an asshole. I don't wear a Chris Bryant jersey when it's White Sox Angels. And I had a good time. I drank beer. I made fun of my Cubs friends. I bet on the Brewers. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
At the end of the day, we're all baseball fans. I don't care if it's Fenway or if it's the Windy City Thunderbolts. If there's a game and there's beer to be drank, I'm there.
I love it.
As simple as that. And, Brian, I seen a little a back and forth between I think it was a fucking bot or
this guy. He's all up in my shit. He's so mad I went to the Cubs game. He's made like 4 different accounts. He's an Ottawa Senators fan that lives in Wheaton. So let's relax.
He has that type of fandom and he's pulling receipts.
Yeah. Because I went and made a cup snake in the Wrigley bleachers.
Yeah. You know, Brian, I want to ask you because we were supposed to be building a fucking statue and plastering it on top of the bean. Where is your mental health right now, knowing that we probably are away from that stage of our White Sox fandom?
I mean, the statue is always going to be on the bean. Like, he'll forever be my guy. It's unfortunate. I've moved on. I've fully moved on. We'll see what happens. I could tear him down. It's very possible I tear it down and replace it with Andrew Vaughn. We'll see what happens. But there's plenty of more Chicago landmarks to put people on. So he can keep his bean. His family comments, they're probably true, but it's hurtful. So that makes me want to take it down.
Wow. Yeah, I think Gonzo's still upset a little bit that we don't have Abreu in the lineup. He's actually against the Andrew Vaughn fucking Rakes Club. So I feel like I've been trying to get Gonzo to at least support Andrew Vaughn, and he's not doing it. He's refusing to doing it because he misses Jose Abreu.
It's fully replaced. Like, my build the statue, put it on top of the bean tweets outside of the post-game videos were the most liked tweets I had. The Andrew Vaughn fucking Rakes Club tweets now do numbers.
Yeah. Well,
so I mean, the people are there for it.
It's a great name for Andrew. You know what? I think that it's fair for White Sox fans and for guys like Brian. Again, when you're a fan and you double down on a player, and we always joke around the bean stuff. Like, guys like Brian made Abreu a bigger legend than he really was. He brought 0 World Series rings to the city of Chicago. Let's keep it fucking real. Okay. Yeah. So he was a great player. He's probably the only guy with those numbers and not that much success and like winning as a team to like be considered to getting his number retired. He's loved in the city. Had he gone and walked away and never said anything like he did while he was a player, there's nothing that you can talk about him in a negative way. But for him to go out, that's what I didn't like about the comments. Number one, you've been there in freaking Houston for like a week, bro. Like, they just won the World Series. Like, of course it's great there. Like, they just won a World Series. Like, everyone loves each other. But like, you're talking about the clubhouse. You were part of the problem then. Like, you were in there, and you should have done something while you were in there. Don't wait till you get out. And I hate that because everyone thought that you're like a leader, which everyone that knows means that you're not a leader. I mean, you're more of a quiet guy, which is fine. But for him to say, "Oh, we weren't a family, we weren't this," and it's like, wait a minute, were you lying half the time then when you were talking? Like, I can't take your word for it. I don't like that type of stuff. I rather would have just let him walk away and go from there, because and then the awkward part is, all his teammates are around him in Houston. They're all hanging out and all doing that, which means they still like him. I was like, Abreu's really like, because if I'm on the team, okay, and I'm one of the top guys, and you're like, we didn't really get along in here, and we didn't feel that from you. You never brought it up to us. I would have had some words with him. I would have said, what's up? What's the problem? So that part, I think that fans can take him down from the statue. They can move on to Vaughn and kind of like wish more for the future. And you can wish that I think that as a White Sox fan, you hope that Andrew Vaughn is a better player at the end of the day than Abreu. And it does not take away from the fact that you were an Abreu fan or that you praise everything that he did. Don't you want the guy who replaces a great player to be better than the guy that was there before? That's what I think. That's like the
logically that makes a ton of sense.
That's like logically like what you want to like the player to be. Somebody wrote to Ozzy like, "Why are you being so nice to Grifol? Why are you talking to 4 in the field?" And we're like, I think people are like, he's the only guy that understands what Grifol's going to, because not many people have that job. Number 2, he works on TV, so he's like, it's easier for him when the team wins. He likes the White Sox, so it's like, why would I go against the guy who's never done anything to me? Like, and fans have that hard time of like, if you like Vaughn, you don't like Abreu. If you like Abreu, so I'm like, wait, so like if you like Abreu, you don't like PK because he took PK's job. So like, are we gonna play this game? So that part, you could say anything you want from an Abreu standpoint because he opened up that gate for fans to be able to be mean to him, because at that point he had never said anything, so you could have not been mean. Now it's an open game.
By the way, Junior, it is the Andrew Vaughn fucking Rakes Club to you. All right. And he is better than Josh Bell. So I did have.
By the way, you know
that's a ricochet shot.
By the way, do you know that Andrew? Hey, by the way, do you know that Josh? I did not know this about Josh Bell, that he was a Silver Slugger.
It was a while ago.
One of the most overrated.
That had to have been when he was on the Pirates. Then
he was like a Silver Slugger. I lost a bet, and because I think he's one of the most overrated like first basemen out there. But I like the fact that, to give Brian credit, that Andrew Vaughn Rakes Club was created way before, any of these expectations or him.
Yeah, that was like his fifth home run.
And that's why I really like the name, and I have nothing against it, because it's was created way before he was awesome. Like if Andrew Vaughn had 20 home runs and he fucking created the thing, it's dude, no shit, we get it. But it was created from day one that he got to the big leagues. So that's why I like it. And I don't, by the way, here's the thing. I said this. I don't think he's going to be a bad player. I just don't think that he's going to hit 30 home runs. And there's nothing wrong with that. I said he's John Olerud with the regular hat. And a little bit uglier, because he is not very good looking.
And a foot shorter.
He is, by the way. So a quick thing. I think Brian's going to enjoy the story. So Harold Baines. So the first time Harold Baines met Andrew Vaughn, I was standing right next to him. It was at White Sox Fest. And Andrew Vaughn looked like he was about to go interview for a freaking internship. He had khaki pants on and looked like he had just gone out of college, because he literally had. And
classic Andrew Vaughn.
It was my dad, it was Harold, myself, and I was like, "Hey man, nice to meet you," and nice to meet you, Andrew Vaughn. Obviously, I knew who he was, and he's like, "Oh," I'm like, "I'm Ozzie Jr." And Harold thought that I was meaning that he was one of the new interns that was helping out in Sox. And I'm like, "Harold, this is Andrew Vaughn." He goes, "Wait, you're the first rounder?" He goes, "Aren't you a first baseman? Aren't you a little short to plug first?" And Andrew said, "That's what they always said." And he goes, "You must be really good, because you're very small," because he's not very tall. So yeah, so the first time they both met him, they were like, "Wait, is this guy an intern?" I'm like, "No, dude, that's the first round pick." And they were like, "What the?" And he's the first baseman. So, but he's a great guy, and he's been proving it. So I like the Andrew Vaughn. I just think 30 is going to be hard, because I just think 30 is hard, period. But I think he's gonna put up solid numbers. He's gonna be a first baseman on the Sox for a while.
Yeah, he doesn't need to hit 30 if he keeps ripping doubles like he is. I mean, the club still applies, so it works.
Yeah, it's a rate club. It's not the home run club. We just give Gonzo. Gonzo took every futures bet on Andrew Vaughn, pretty much. His house is mortgaged. Yeah, so he doesn't enjoy wins. If Andrew Vaughn does not do well, he does not enjoy wins. You know what I like about the Andrew Vaughn? I'm gonna because I know you're a big Lance Lynn guy too, and you hate Lance Lynn if he pitches against you. He's grabbing himself. He's doing, that's his style, which is great. But Andrew Vaughn, not just the crazy eyes now, but his little shit talking to the Scafani. What I heard was that
what was that about?
He said something about the 3-0 count, you're a little. He called him something oh, you got no balls or something, throwing me like that. He didn't like the pitch. He was calling him out on his manhood. And I love that, because again, it's a little bush league. It happens, you're just a little pissed because you got you out. But I love it because you're frustrated and you're like, whatever, I'm just gonna start stuff. A little, not something that you see a guy that's, that young in the big leagues, kind of just getting his job. And he was and he didn't do anything about it. He was very AJ Brzezinski. The guy was talking, he was like, "I don't care, dude. You're just basically fighting by yourself." I like that. I like that in players. I like that players can get under a team, the skin of other players. I love that. And I think the White Sox need a little bit more of that. They need a little bit more.
Yeah,
Lance Lynn pitches once a week, so it's very hard to replicate that every night when he's not on the mound. If they get guys on the field that replicate that attitude, I'm a fan of that.
I want every single guy on this team talking shit. No. Every single game.
Yeah, we're coming off of 81 and 81 season. You gotta. It's one thing to set the tone. It's another thing to maintain that edge. That is the type of stuff that can propel you through a 162 game season. When you fall flat, sometimes put the chip back on your shoulder. It's like the Michael Jordan thing. He used to antagonize people so he could have a target. I mean, it's weird that Andrew Vaughn could chirp back at somebody after hitting the ball back to the pitcher on a 3-0 or the 3-0 swing, but I do like it. You gotta have some asshole to you.
Maybe he doesn't like him. Maybe he doesn't like him. He was mad. They just got freaking BP'd, or maybe Andrew Vaughn's like, you guys were tipping your pitches. Again, there's just things that can happen. The White Sox have had one problem, and because people thought that these guys had an attitude, they don't have an attitude. When Renteria was here, bat flipping and dancing and saying, "Hi, Mom," that's just, you're being a big dork. No one's scared of that. No one's like, oh man, we're gonna face this team. When you have, and I'm going back to Cleveland, when you play Cleveland, you're like, two things are going to happen. They might beat us up and we might fight. And when you've seen Ozzy's teams, they were always in situations. There's teams that have this attitude, and it's not like excitement. This team needs more of like being kind of like a little more of an asshole type of feel. And this is something that you need players to see. Like, for example, last year, the whole Jackie and TA thing, the fact that it went beyond another inning, and the fact that TA had to tell Grandal what was happening, and then Grandal called out, like that storyline just way too long. Like TA should have been comfortable enough to be like, the first time he heard it, first punch flying out. And he's like, my team's got my back. Because when you're on the field, it's like, it's kind of ironic, because I'll give you the AJ Brzezinski, like, in baseball, you can talk, because your team's gonna back. If you know your team's gonna back you up, you just go with it. But if you don't think your team's gonna back you up, you're a little bit shy. So this Andrew Vaughn is like more of like, okay, he's definitely feels comfortable enough that if something does happen right now, they're ready to protect him and back him up. Vice versa, I think the team before, yes, they were cooler, they were nicer, they were funnier, they had more swagger. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're tough or that you're going, and that's something that they need to make that line, because, dude, they don't play a lot of games, okay? They've been blamed for being like lazy at times. You don't want to add to being soft, like the other teams think that you're soft and a pushover. And that's not a very good combination, okay, for the White Sox fan base, like Brian, the hardcores, where they love that type of player of like hard-nosed, died like Lynn. I laughed. Lynn's like 83, and he's like, and he's like screaming. I'm like, that was his fastball. This little mean ball just went up there. But he makes it seem, and you enjoy it. So I agree with that. I'm a big fan of the attitude.
Now, Brian, we're gonna go back here to the 108 tourney that just happened, like within the past 2 weeks here. You're trying to run it back to back, and unfortunately, we saw in the early rounds some voting just spiked, and you threw out the term bot terrorism. So I think we need to reach out to our local senators of the state of Illinois.
Are you kidding me?
Create a bill for this bot terrorism, because it's just tearing apart our communities and the White Sox community. And you didn't really get that fair shot at the tournament. And I feel for you. And I really want to let you speak upon it, but also talk to us a little bit about the campaign side of it within these tournaments, with how you won it last year and how the fun of it. So go ahead, Brian.
I mean, the 108 tourney, it's awesome. I mean, it's the most fun I've probably had in Twitter the 2 years I've been in it. The year one, ran the whole thing, electric stuff, the best championship match the tournament's ever seen. And then this year, got in the bracket with Summer of George. Every single human alive wanted the me Summer of George matchup. We got it. And unfortunately, it got ruined by bots. So I don't know how the hell the year before we had a matchup of me and Alyssa with well over 7,000 votes and no bot, 50-50 all day long. But this tournament, it was just bots everywhere. It was just, I don't know who's buying them. I don't know what loser part of White Sox Twitter is buying bots, but it's disgusting. I won't stand for it. I made the George W. Bush video. It was hilarious. It was great. And the people didn't listen to me. I thought it would work. There was like 3 matches the day before that were riddled with bots. I was like, we got to go full George W. Bush on these people. And it didn't work. They didn't listen to me. They didn't care. Every match got ruined. It ended up being a 3-way championship. It was a snooze fest all day because nobody's doing content. And it's a content battle. I don't know how you win it without making content, but that's what we saw this year.
Yeah, and with the 108 tourney, like you just said, it's full of different content. You get to see people's personalities that they normally wouldn't show. The drinking is very excessive. Actually, I had a fucking hangover at 6:30 in the morning because I woke up and just seen people chugging Four Locos. I'm not.
See, I won't do that. That's that.
I'm not gonna name anybody, but I'm just gonna say screw the Vikings too.
I'll get after it. But when it comes like if it's a chugging contest, I'm out. I suck at chugging and have never been able to figure it out. I'm done.
You're a professional. So I'm gonna. Yeah. I found out about Brian because of content, and I only give you a follow. Okay, if you're my friend, your content might suck, but we're friends. But I might find you on Twitter and be like, I like this guy. Like with this shit that he's putting out there, it's either informative, it's funny, it's dumb, but I think I laugh at it and I follow it. Okay. The 108 tournament is like my time where I get to see who's behind the account. And I might follow you just because I think you're funny and you're just putting content. So I need content because if the other, it goes the opposite way. If I think that you were horrible and I'm like, I literally found out about you, and then I look at your content, I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. These are the worst take ever. I will never follow you. I might mute you. Like I might just block you just so I don't see your horrible takes. But that's what I think the tournament is all about. It's like getting to see who the content, and I hope, that's what I love about Brian, consistency. Like if you can turn on for the tournament and then like keep it going of like whatever your White Sox take is and be able to provide that information. Because I think that's the hardest thing on Twitter. Like anyone can turn it on for a month, 3 weeks. Like you can, but like if you 162 games, that's a lot of baseball. So that's why I like, Brian's stuff, because he's consistent with it and it's always the same. It doesn't really change. So like when it gets into the tournament, again, it's fun because you get to discover new people. But some of the stuff I'm like, I was like, there's just like, you need a little bit of baseball acumen. Like some of the stuff that I was out there, I'm like, do these people even know who's on the team? Like it's just like I'm being serious. Like some of the stuff I'm like, it was just funny. It was just like they're like, I'm just gonna join this because I'm just gonna root for the White Sox because my friends do it, and they're like, I don't know. And again, those are how you get these crazy polls of like someone saying like Dylan the C sucks. His first outing was horrible. He's not a Cy Young candidate. And you're like, at this point, I'm like, you know what? You just gotta let it go because you can't really even have a strong baseball conversation at that point.
Yeah, I think that's why my content plays, and like why, like I might not have the biggest following, but it's a loyal bunch of humans because they know I'm showing up. Like since August of 2020, we haven't missed a post game, so it's the people like that I'm showing up, and the numbers support it. And I did the first game this year, and that video did absolute numbers, and there was like 40 replies of being like, QTMFBB's back, let's go.
I give crap to a mutual friend of ours, the leader of this nut job fan crew of White Sox Dave, because I'm like, it got out that I said that Brian knew more baseball than White Sox Dave, and he knew the White Sox better. And he knew the White Sox better than White Sox Dave, and he was not happy.
That's aggressive.
Said, why? By the way, being crazy and doing, just being funny does not mean that the team. And I think that you're able to do that because of consistency. Like the game ends, we get to watch you on a consistent basis, that you get to give your take, good or bad. So that's what I think that for me, that's what Twitter's about. Because I'll be honest, like sometimes if I'm not, if I don't get to watch, it's 162 games, I don't watch every single game. And, I got other teams to watch. I listen to Brian. I'm okay. I'm going to get the feeling of like how the games happen. That's why I enjoy it. I got to start doing that for the tribe, Jay. Just become the Brian of Cleveland.
I'll fucking quit right now. I'll request a trade. Matter of fact,
I'll do it like a different character. I'll just do it as a different character.
Come on.
Every fan base needs a meme.
I think it's a great. Like it's like a fast, to the point, no BS, 100% feelings with good baseball content. Like that's
why it works. It's short videos. It keeps the attention span, and sometimes we're just going over a box score, but sometimes if like some cool stuff happens, we get more in depth with it, and there's jokes thrown in, and it's fast paced. It's electric. The people love it.
And that's the key, Brian, is when you're doing your post game shows, it's a good, smooth transition. It's not nobody just sitting there for fucking 5.5 minutes complaining about the starting pitching when we when we got our ass creamed. You know what I'm saying? Brian, you tell us exactly how a fan should feel after either watching a masterclass or a shit show.
Yeah, like the home opener you guys were talking about earlier. Like a lot of people were just having a good time because everyone was drunk. It didn't matter that they lost 12-3, and that's what that post game really was. I was like, hey, Kopech was throwing batting practice. Luis Robert went yard. We're at Cork. Come drink. Like that was the post game.
And it's crazy
obviously he likes it because he's like, I wish that I could say that in my post game because that's how a lot of times you feel. And he's said this, like, I could usually say how it really felt as a manager and I wasn't going to get crap for it. But now, you know, that's his job. And he's like, you can't really come out and be like, yeah, like it is what it is. You got your butt kicked because fans are going to get mad. Like anytime that you're like, and for baseball, it's so hard because compared to football, you're going to lose 40 games. Okay. So like the keeping people off the ledge of this first week, the take is other than the players playing well, the fans are so quick on the trigger. Like the first week was like, how are we judging Grifol on his bullpen management? I'm like, the guy's it's his first series. Like, what do you want? Like, it's going to happen. Even good managers mess up so like that, like the panic button on, we're going to get rid of Elvis Andrus in 3 weeks and Sosa's going to be up here. I'm like, what are these people on? And that's the hard part because you're dealing with a wild fan base.
Yeah, there's a lot of idiots out there, that's for sure.
Now, this is our show segment of Blackout Live, and in our segment every week, we're going to have a topic for this segment, and I'm going to post it here in the chat so everyone can see it with you guys as well. But our topic this week is runners in scoring position. And what is your thoughts on the lack of execution with runners in scoring position from the Sox? And evidently, I know earlier in Grifol's grounds, we were talking with bases loaded multiple times throughout the Houston series. And I remember one in particular, I think it was bases loaded, 1 out, and you had Colas, Elvis, and then Tim. Colas, I think it was actually no outs because Colas struck out on all cutters inside at the shin or below. And then Elvis, ended up working the count and chasing one, didn't move any of the runners over. And then with 2 outs, Tim went at the first pitch and grounded out to second base to end the inning. Junior, what has your thoughts been with the lack of these opportunities early on the season? Because it does remind us a lot of the 22 team that we just witnessed last year.
So I looked up numbers from the 2005 White Sox. It's the greatest White Sox team that's played in the last 30 years. When you look at those guys' numbers, Creedy, Rowan, a lot of guys, not a lot of guys on Nate PK or Jermaine. You look at their numbers, and they're very normal numbers. The numbers are not like, oh my God, this guy dropped 40 bombs. But then like you look at the reason of why, and it's productive outs. I think this has been an issue with the White Sox. Even the year they won 93 games, they won 93 games because they basically were that much more talented than everyone else. And a team sometimes can succeed that and get to the playoffs. But is it a team that wins the World Series? Sometimes it does not, because you need to find the time when you're going to score those small runs. And I'm tired already of like someone's like, oh, well, is a new hitting coach talking about situational hitting? These guys have been talking situational hitting since they were 10. Okay. Situational hitting goes down to one thing. Are you willing to sacrifice your at bat to be able to, if you don't get a hit, your swing is built out to the fact that you're going to get yourself out of, I'm driving this run in no matter what. When that's your mindset, that's when you are able to execute productive outs, move the runner over. Runner on third base, you need to bring that runner in with less 2 outs. So the only guy out of this whole week that I did not crap on the first time that he did it was Colas, because he's the only guy that's like first time in the big leagues. You might get overexcited. You're like, you've been whooping on everybody in the minor leagues. You might have not worked the counter pitch that you're going to drive, and you look like Ozoro with these sliders. Like, he looked like he had no shot. Elvis Andrus, you should know better. Moncada, you should know better. Like, when you look at some of these approaches when they go up there, they literally are thinking, I'm going to hit a double, instead of like looking at the scoreboard and saying, sees his pitching. It's a one. We can win 1-0. That's the change that this team needs to make from talent to becoming a good team. When you're looking at the scoreboard and saying, okay, Lance is on the mound, we need probably about 4 runs. Like, let's get to and then if you get to do it and they get to applaud it, and fans and the team gets just as excited about a run being driven in their culture, then they're going to start executing it. Like, that's something that they have to want to do. That's not the hitting coach. The hitting coach is not there like, yes, we missed another with a runner on third. He's preaching this. Guys do it in batting practice. It has to come down to them. And this week was horrible. And they could have, I literally think this, they won 2 games, okay, and split on pure talent. Had they done the little things like driving the runner from third, they win this series. I don't know if they'll sweep, but they win the series at minimum. They win the series very, very easily. They win the series. And that's when you're looking at the Sox are at a point where they're above the 500 threshold. That's the difference between the teams that make it to the playoffs and go deep, because you're able to produce and steal those 10 games because you have, 1 or 2 runs. And that's when you look at Cleveland. That's my last point, is when you look at Cleveland and you look at the Sox, Cleveland's numbers are not better than the Sox in a lot of categories. But when you look at like situational hitting, they don't miss, man. They like last year, they caught the ball and they literally came in and like runner on second, they move them over. That run comes in. That's where the Sox need to be. And that's something that's a positive, though, because usually the first issue on shitty teams is that guys don't get on base. It's like you don't even get to hit with runner on third base. The fact that they did it like 4 times in like one game is like, okay, they're at least getting on base. They can definitely go in and fix that problem. But that's something Grifol needs to stay on top of these guys and hold them accountable for.
Yeah, what you think, Brian? You think we're still bitten by the runners in scoring position bug of last year?
I mean, it's clear that this team absolutely still stinks with bases loaded. But, I mean, Ozzy's right. It's comparing it to Cleveland. Cleveland is a team that can manufacture runs, and that's exactly why they won the Central last year. The White Sox can't do that, and they need to learn how to. They can get on base, but then everyone goes up to the plate. Like you said, Colas, I mean, it was clear he was antsy. He was swung at 3 straight slider cutters off the plate. But the guys that have been there, they need to get them on, get them over, get them in. That's what we have to do, because we saw that last year, and it didn't happen. Because if we had bases loaded and no outs like we did in Houston, and they go sack fly, strikeout, 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 we're probably still mad. We're like, you got to get more than 1 there. But that 1 is better than 0. So This team needs to manufacture runs, and I think we're going to see it. I think at some point this season, it'll get to the point where they're going to start doing that. They'll get in that groove, especially with the stolen base rates we're seeing. We have guys like Tim Anderson. He can get to second base, no problem. We don't need to manufacture an out to make that happen. So if he can get to second by stealing a bag, it makes it a whole lot easier. So guys got to just go up there, stop trying to play hero ball, and just get guys in.
Yeah. I just want to go back to
I have a question. So this is for the guys that love analytics. Gonzo, you can help me. Maybe you can freaking build it out, or if we can find someone to.
What's this?
No, I cannot. I don't know why there's no stat out there. And I'm talking about teams like productive outs. So like you got, let's say you gave, 100 outs, but like out of those outs, like 35, 40 of them are like productive outs. Like you moved the runner over, you drove in a run. Like how much more valuable is a player that is giving you productive outs? Because again, you have all these outs, but there's got to be like a certain outs that end up being valuable. Like I wish there was that stat where you're like, we are under the threshold of like valuable runs, because I really think that those are like the garbage runs are like the ones that will get you at the end. And no, they can give me every analytic. They can be like every number on a pitch, but no one has that number of like productive outs. And I was just like, I don't know if you guys have seen anything on it, or if it's,
I haven't, but I would love that. I mean, if somebody's willing to put in the effort, let's set a value on like an RBI ground out or a fielder's choice that scores a run, a sac fly, moving a runner from second to third on a ground ball to first base. If they could put a number on that and make it, I don't know, like war style, but it's I would love to see that.
On Bad Guy Radio, Keek Mac created some crazy fucking metric where we were counting like sacrifice flies, productive outs. You remember the Mac errors we talked about a couple weeks ago? So he was doing that. I'm gonna try to get his old ass to oil up the machine and let's get back to work. But he's getting kind of old now. The computer makes him nervous a little bit. But we'll try to work something out.
I just think it's fun though, because again, when you're watching the game of like a productive out, because everyone's gonna notice like when you don't bring that run in, because everyone's like watching, like you have 3 runners on base. Like I think there's probably no other way to get worse out. It's like, you know, it's like you get drunk in your house, nobody cares, nobody sees you. You get drunk at a wedding, it's like a bigger deal because everybody sees you. It's like you're still drunk, but it's like third witness is not my drunkenness. That's like how I feel like with runner on third. It's like, damn it, I have to come with runner on third. Like I always want to come on with no runners on. If I strike out, it's like no big deal. You strike out runner on third in less than 2 outs, that one counts a lot more. Like people are talking about it after the game. And that's the only at bat, which is funny that anyone's talked about the Colas, is because he looked outmatched, even though he's pretty much looked the same in every other at bat. But that's like the one that people are talking about. So that's something that I would really love, because I think that better teams get more productive outs. And I think that this is where the players right now, believe it or not, I haven't really seen that growth. And I think this is a year where we're gonna see growth from certain players where they didn't really do that. Like Pantera, now Colas, and even Andrew Vaughn. Like these guys, you know, these guys have less than 5 years in the big league. So I that's something that, you know, we hold them accountable as like they were 15-year veterans, but a lot of these guys are less than 5 years.
Yeah, I feel like this is something that we need to get Jay Kuda on. I feel like you could probably rep something out to show some really emphasis on the
I love Jay Kuda.
Productive outs. But before I wrap this up, I just want to say that we did see the Sox squander a lot of opportunities in that series, and it really could have gone either way. Besides the split, you could have won that series, you could have lost it. And I'm really content with the split coming out of Houston on the road.
The more impressive thing of the split is that they won a game that they left bases loaded, 0 outs twice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can win a game like that, imagine what they could do if they can manufacture some runs.
The only thing about this, Brian, is that like I might be content with this, but like as the season goes, these are the series early on we could have won to really separate ourselves with the division if expectations go how we want them to go, especially with a team like Cleveland. Last year, they showed us how baseball's played the right way with a young core that they had. And these are the type of series you need to win, not only to show yourself versus the defending champs, but to separate yourselves from your 500 clubs and below. These are the series you want to win and to, you know, stay up there in the standings so early on. Yes, I know there's so many games to go, but these are the difference makers down the road, I feel. And again, it's a split, but I really would have loved to see them take that series on the road.
Yeah, I mean, any time on the road in Houston, I'll take a split. Like now, this weekend, they go and lose to Pittsburgh, I'll be pissed.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where they need to play better, because they're notorious for that. Like they'll play really good against really good teams, and they're like one of those teams that plays to the level. So again, I want to see growth, and if that's going to be like the bar of them moving forward, I don't see this team as a team that's like Astros, like World Series ready of like, okay, this team needs to like, they're there. This team is like a gradual like growth. And I'm gonna be honest, man. I'm one thing about Grifol, when you talked about, he looked very pissed. He looked very pissy. Like his moods, like he's very positive, like when he won, but like those games that he lost, like he said the right stuff, but you could tell that he was annoyed of certain things. Like you could tell his demeanor. So it's like at one point, I don't think he's gonna like curse out and like, you know, say some wild stuff. But I can see him really snapping and really breaking down on some things that if he knows that they can't execute moving forward. So that's going to be something very interesting going ahead in the season.
Before we leave, I just want to point out that Pittsburgh is in progress of taking a series against the mighty Red Sox. Now, I understand this is a fucking White Sox podcast.
Red Sox suck, bro.
They're awful.
You know what?
They're very bad.
But, yeah,
and my friends are manager.
This is Southside Daily. Better offense than the White Sox. How about that?
this is Southside Daily, where we're going to preview the upcoming week. Boys, this week we got 6 games in 3 different series. The first 2, we just had the first home opener on Monday, but we have 2 more at home versus the Giants, and that will be Dylan Cease versus Logan Webb tomorrow, followed by Lance Lynn and Alex Wood. And surprising to see Estrada is leading the club right now for the Giants with the 275 average and 563 slugging. But for these 2 games, it would be nice if Sox can go ahead and win these 2 and win the series. And that's what I'm kind of expecting of these Sox with the matchups we got. But don't get me wrong, that duel tomorrow with Dylan Cease and Logan Webb. Webb is a crazy underrated guy over there on the West Coast and a really dominant righty. And our Sox do have troubles with righties. And I think tomorrow is going to be a battle between the 2 of them. And probably see the bullpen end it here. And we will get down to that matchup tomorrow with our bets next segment. But I'm excited for tomorrow's matchup. And then we go on the road Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 3-game series in Pittsburgh, and it's going to be Friday matchup of Lucas Giolito versus Rich Hill, the veteran southpaw and Hill. And then Saturday is Mike Clevenger versus our former White Sox, Vince Velasquez. And then Sunday, you have
they better score 40 runs.
If Pittsburgh wins a fucking game this weekend.
Who's the 3rd game?
The 3rd game is Michael Kopech versus the righty Oviedo for Pittsburgh. And then, of course, we know what Brian Reynolds can do, but he's off to a hot start as well with the 429 average and 1,048 slugging right now. But I'm expecting hopefully 2 of 3 at the very least. I would really love to see the Sox club take 3 and sweep them. And Monday's game is also on the road to begin the series with Cease versus Mieda. And surprisingly, Joey Gallo is leading that club in production with a 250 average, 3 home runs, 7 ribbies. So, boys, what do you guys think about these 3 opponents coming up this week?
I like the Logan Webb versus Dylan Cease. That game's going to come down to which starter is going to be able to handle base runners in traffic, because I don't think Dylan Cease is going to have another outing where he doesn't walk anybody. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of traffic on the base path. It's just how quick can you start off against a guy like Logan Webb? Because you don't want to be in the 5th and 6th inning and he's still in the game, because that lets me know that you're running out of fucking time. The worst case scenario is they're going from Logan Webb straight to Camilo Doval. So you got to get Logan Webb out of there as soon as possible. Get to that middle relief for the Giants bullpen. I'm not worried about Cease. I'm worried about the other 9 assholes carrying bats.
Yeah, what do you think, Brian?
I'm expecting the pitcher's duel. For the first game at least, or for tomorrow. I'll be there. We'll see what happens. I think this is going to be the Andrew Benintendi game. This is going to be the game where it's like, good thing we paid this guy some money. I looked. It's not offered yet. Whatever his total bases is to tomorrow, I'm hammering it, because I think Andrew Benintendi's going to get on base. He's going to score some runs, and it'll be a beautiful thing.
He had a bad game yesterday, and he was on base twice. So, take Brian's advice.
I think tomorrow's the day where it's like, all right, this was a good signing.
Go ahead, Junior. I know you're about
to say. No, I think that so I'm looking at this is a perfect setup for White Sox and White Sox fans, because this could get really ugly, and this is going to be a big week to see what kind of White Sox team we got. So I got Cease and Webb. I got Cease over 5 strikeouts, easy. I got the White Sox going deep in the first inning off of Webb. They're going to tattoo him.
And into the light landing, baby. Let's go.
If they don't get Webb in the first inning, we got a pitcher's duel. I think they get on Webb the first inning.
I like that.
I still think that if they go down the line and Cease does that, and the White Sox take an early deep manufacturing run after that first inning, if it doesn't happen, they're gonna have to manufacture a run. So I want to see them running. Move a guy over, get a run in, because they can win a game 2-0. 1-0, 2-0 with the pen helping them out, and I'm a big Ronaldo Lopez guy closing, so the White Sox take that game for sure. I think that they take the Lynn game. They definitely go 2-1 versus San Francisco, and moving themselves into a great path going into the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I'm sorry, I don't like to bash any big league players because they're big league players, but man, if you're a hitter, you're looking towards that Pittsburgh series and saying, this is where I make my money. This is where you get this is where you just say, I'm going to stat pat. You get those home runs and you get those, so you can, those weeks that you're going to face those harder pitchings that you're going to go for 0 for 10s. This is where you make up for those, and this is where you put those numbers up. So I think that they're going to destroy the Pirates. If they need to sweep the Pirates, meaning the 2 games are for sure. The third game is the Michael Kopech bounce game, okay? Because you're facing a weaker offense, okay, a weaker opponent. Your team is going to give runs to you, but I don't want you to win just based on the runs and your ERA and all that. You need a bounce back game. I'm not talking about 6 innings. I'm talking about solid, innings, less than 2 earned runs. Kind of like you can see him bounce back and be able to put himself back on track. And that's going to go into Minnesota again. You could split and whatnot. That's going to be a hard series. But if the White Sox, for any shape or form, destroy this week, meaning they come out, I can't even fathom it, of they lose the series versus the Giants and they go into Pittsburgh and they lose the series in Pittsburgh, or it's just a really bad debacle, then they're in trouble, because then Minnesota puts them in a situation now where you might be 5-6 games out of first place in April and in a really bad situation. So this is I love the fact that they played and got whooped opening day, that they had the off day, regroup, and kind of just be able to go on this run, a run that you want to make it, you want to stack up on the wins and, keep that 2.5 game lead closer, and no one can run away from you. That's why, because you're running into a weaker opponent. You got your two big pitchers coming up. Then you got Giolito going against a weaker pitcher to set himself up. And then Kopech, the same thing. So this is a big series in that sense of everybody going. Again, Benintendi getting going. Again, people are like, he's hitting third. Benintendi's got to get going, hitting third, fourth, second. He needs to be able to produce in that lineup. Not hit 30 home runs, but just be able to provide. So I see them as a positive, just because if I don't have a really bad, if this week is bad for them, it will be very, very hurtful for them down the line. Because they had a really good week. Good teams, great games. Again, it wasn't perfect. This week, you hope that it's the same or better. It cannot be worse. So I'll take those bets. I got it. Again, I'm betting every single night that I can. I'm looking at stolen bases, and I'll share those out as we got them with TA. The numbers that you're getting on these stolen bases are just ridiculous. And the strikeouts, you got to, every time the Sox take, the one that blew me out of this world was Clevenger. Clevenger was back to striking out guys, just going right after him. So I thought that he was going to have less than 5 Ks. Not the case. He looked very dominant. So I'm looking at, high strikeout rates versus these teams and high scoring games. Don't be taking no unders. Maybe in the Cease game, maybe, if that. Because again, I can see the White Sox going off on that Giants bullpen. There's nobody really in that bullpen that I'm like, oh, they just beat up on Houston's bullpen, no problem. So again, they're going to score runs. God, they scored runs and they weren't even manufacturing. So that's my take on that. I know that for the pick, I don't really have a player like I did last week on players that we need to stay away from, which we did. They did a horrible job. It's like I told them, pitch to Jordan Alvarez, let him kick your ass. I feel like that was like the scouting report.
You told them that?
No, I'm just saying that I felt like they listened to the show and say, let's do the opposite of what Ozzie Jr. said. I said, don't let Jordan Alvarez hurt you. Like, I was like, why are
they did exactly that.
Why are they pitching to Jordan? Like, it's like, oh, what's your coaching strategy? Don't pitch to Jordan Alvarez. Like, literally, like that would be my strategy versus the Astros. So
hold it there real quick, because we did say pitch around Alvarez, but they went right at him. And with this week coming up, is there anybody in these 3 lineups that you're going to pitch around? Like,
no, and I'm not talking about pitching
gonna...
around. Like, you can, again, you don't want to like not pitch to a guy, but like know the situation. Like if Jordan Alvarez comes up and first base is open, you're getting walked. There's no shame in taking the intentional walk. I'll take my chance with Abreu. And by the way, I have a little bone to pick. Why were they pitching Abreu like they had never seen him take an at bat in a White Sox uniform? I was very disappointed in their approach to Abreu. Their scouting report to Abreu should be the best scouting report. They were pitching to him like they have never seen him hitting, and he had really good at bats. And I think they got off very easily because they threw some meatballs that it could end up really bad. But I was very disappointed on that. Like when you face a former player of yours, you need to dominate him. And I was not happy. So I don't know what the scouting report again on this week when they play Minnesota. Joey Gallo's had a great week, but I'm sorry, Joey. I'm not scared of you.
Joey Gallo.
It's Joey Gallo.
The only player in that lineup you got to consider the scenario pitching, within his charts would be probably Buxton. Like that's a guy you don't want to get hot. You can strike
Buxton out though.
No, I can
expand the zone.
Is he going to play again? There's nobody at that level. When I look at the Giants lineup, like
Junior last year, all right, in April, right, Tony in Minnesota, right, you had Buxton coming off of the injury, and he pitched. I think he pitched. I'm trying to remember if he. I think he decided to go at Buxton because I think Arise was in front of him. I'm trying to remember who you.
No, Arise was behind Buxton. So
yeah.
So he wanted Liam to strike out Buxton before getting to Arise, but
Buxton took him like 480.
Yeah. It was supposed to be
which I kind of understood because of
ball out of the zone, and Liam just caught too much of the zone. Like
here's the thing, though, Arise is not going. And here's the part: Arise is not going to take you deep, and that's where you have. And that's going back to Dylan Cease. I think Dylan.
But hold up. In that situation, Junior, with runners were in scoring position, so you're just trying to go at the guy who was hot here, and Arise was the hottest. Like I said, Buxton was coming off the DL. And Arise was not only your hottest hitter, but he ended up being your batting champ of the league last year. So I understood going at Buxton versus Arise in that moment because all Arise has to do is just get a base hit to take the lead. Like I totally understand that game scenario.
Yeah, it's like situational. You can't just say I'm not going to pitch to a guy because he's there. It's situations. You want to face the best hitters when they don't have anybody on, and if you can get them, you can get them. Going back to like what the staff should do. I think Cease was the better one that did it. Lance Lynn is known for doing this. Lance Lynn loves it. He does not care if there's a runner on first or second when he's pitching. He's a veteran guy in the sense it doesn't change for him. There's a lot of younger pitchers that, I'm not a good pitcher because I got a runner on first, and they get all distraught. And they do. They don't. They're like runner on first. Like runner on first means one pitch away from a double play. That's when you're a good pitcher. You think that. And sometimes I think Cease the last game, like it didn't really feel like he was attacking certain guys because he was like, if you want to get yourself out, you can. If not, I'll let you go to first and I'll face the next guy, especially when he fell behind on the count, which it's not the wrong strategy. So I think in that situation, again, even with, when you look at the numbers, even with Pittsburgh, they cannot if you let the weaker guy in that position, like Arise, beat you, depending on like who the guy, they need to have a guy that this guy is not going to beat me. Even guys that come from the bullpen. Like if you're coming from the bullpen and you're Bummer, and you're not going to face a ninth hitter. Like they're bringing you for the big boys. So you need to have a strategy of like, okay, so that's what I want to see, like consistency when it comes to that on execution and being able to like, what's our game plan? Like, we didn't see it last series, but runner on second, no outs, and their best hitter is up and first base is open. And you think you're going to get, you're going to try to sneak one by him. Guy hits 480. Like so I think this series, I don't see a really big team where you try to stay away from a lot of people. But again, you gotta give credit to like the young players on the Pirates. You gotta see who's hot. Again, Joey Gallo right now is scorching, but again, still Joey Gallo. And you gotta be smart. Again, they're gonna be doing the same for the Sox. I'm sure they're saying the same thing about Moncada, and he's just hot because it's right now. But those are the things like strategy wise that I like to see, which I think he's done a good job to this point.
Yeah, I got some good strategy for you, Z. This is the weekly picks.
And this is our Sox weekly pick to click of the week. And
is this the Ozzy segment?
Yes, this is the Ozzy segment.
I won last week, right?
Ozzy Jr. won week 1 for us, picking Yohan Moncada. Moncada went 429. He had a 429 average, a 455 on base percentage, 905 slugging, and he had 2 home runs and 4 ribbies in those 5 games. Yes, Junior, you won our pick to click for week 1.
And by the way, he basically gave up a double. He was like, I don't even need this double. I'm going to third. That's what he was thinking. I got this one for Junior. I'm trying to let Jay compete. Everybody else compete. I'm just trying to go to third to see if it's just stat padding at that point.
Moncada has no problem getting to third base, literally and figuratively.
So our order this week is going to be Junior, myself, Justin, and then Brian will go last. Brian will give a pick for us for our man Slav, who is on the DL right now.
So the rule is, Brian, the rule is no one can pick Moncada. So Moncada won. He needs to sit out, which is going to be funny. Hopefully it's not like the last. Hopefully this is not like Moncada's greatest week of the year.
All of a sudden he hits 180 this week.
Yeah, he had 4 home runs. Then he hit them all in the first week. Like I would feel so bad. But I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go with a guy. I was battling between 2 guys. I like what I've seen defensively. I love the fact that he actually came out, shut a lot of people up on Twitter. Or saying like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's swinging out of the zone. He's going to swing out of the zone always and for the rest of his life. No one cares that Jose Ramirez swings at the dumbest pitches where they at because he rakes and he does well. And that's his style. Luis Robert Jr., okay, is going to get hot this week. I like what he's been swinging. I like the way that he's approaching. And not everyone's going to hit the first week, but I think that he's going to have a really, really good week. I think that when he gets hot, I like the last couple of at-bats that he had. So I'm going to go with Pantera.
All right. And Junior, like this whole sitting Moncada, it's just the week, not the season, right? We got
no. After next week, he's even if he has the best week compared to everybody that lost, he's active again. But I'm going to go Pantera. I just think that he's due. I think he's going to have a good week.
All right. I'm going to go next here, and I'm going to surprise some people. I'm going to go with the pitcher because he's got 2 starts this week.
You can do that.
Yes, you can. He's got 2 starts this week. Mr. Dylan Cease, my boy, the Dirty Stash is out. My boy's going to go up against the Giants and the Twins, and I hope he backs his shit up with that stash that he has because he's got the filthiest shit right now, and I hope he leads me to victory with 2 dominant performances with 2 dubs on the board this week. That's what I need to take this pick to click for this week. And I just hope he shoves again for 2 more starts this week, especially for that second start versus the Twins on the road. And Minnesota is 4-0 right now, so I want to see our boy put an L in that category for the Twinkies. And Jay, you're up now.
Well, I'm betting on black, like King Max says. I'm picking the best shortstop in fucking Chicago. Now, when we were going through in White Sox Daily, the fact that I have Tim Anderson seeing Rich Hill this weekend, that's better than porn. There's no porn that you can give me other than Tim Anderson facing Rich Hill. He's gonna have a prolific week. He had a great series in Houston. The defense was good. The base running was immaculate. I mean, his back control in situations, I was liking what I was seeing. So, actually, screw the both of you. I'm going with the winner of this week in Tim Anderson.
Very solid, Jay. That was actually who I was going between him and Cease. but I just couldn't help myself.
Is he the best shortstop in Chicago? Oh, how's this little?
Are you deaf? I said it.
I know. I'm just putting it on my highlight. That's a big take. I know you don't watch the Cubs. You got Swanson over there.
It doesn't matter. Dante's not hitting 20 home runs this year.
Brian.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead, Brian. Take us with our last pick of the segment here.
I said tomorrow's the Andrew Benintendi game, but this is the Eloy Jimenez week. At some point, he's going to start hitting absolute moon bombs. And like Jay said, that comes against Rich Hill.
Oh, man, that's going to be horrible. Oh, that's going to be so bad. Rich Hill's
That's going to be a closed casket.
Oh.
He go opposite field into the Allegheny. And he never – if not, he's putting one off that scoreboard and left in Pittsburgh. Eloy is going off this week at least 3 home runs.
Yeah, he might. I don't know that Vince Velasquez matchup too. You're pumped. You're like, oh, I'm gonna get this guy.
That's 500 dead center.
Yeah, that's this is how you hit 40, and this is how you hit 40. That's just the reality of it. This might be the hardest week to win. Season's gonna have to be like lights out because I think offensively, I think that the White Sox are gonna be due for like a really big monster week. Just because when you look at these guys, I'm sorry, like they're just really I just don't see them matching up. They looked really good against some really good pitching, which I think Chicago fans only know big names. They probably think like Rich Hill is still like a big time pitcher. And Vince obviously pitched in Chicago, so they think he's good automatically. But like the Astros have really good pitching. Like they were facing a couple of those guys that were like, top 15 in the MLB in general, very good bullpens, and they looked great. So offensively, I don't really see if there was been a problem. So this week could be scary for all those guys.
Come Sunday evening, the White Sox will be 7-3. I'm calling it right now. We're going on a 5-game winning streak here.
That's fucking beautiful.
All right, Junior. So I'm looking. This is where we're end the show here with some. I know you alluded to some bets already, but we're gonna end it with a couple more. Tomorrow's matchup, you got the.
I said tomorrow's matchup. I got money line obviously on the Sox, but I'm gonna go Cease over 5. That's an easy one. That's an easy take. I'm gonna take a bet. It's probably like a plus 700 right now. White Sox go deep in the first inning because I really think that Webb inning. Webb is like he's not good in the first inning. Like if he gets out of the first inning, he usually locks in, and then he doesn't get out to the 6th. And again, then the Sox can get to their bullpen. But if the Sox in that first inning. Again, I think that the way that those guys have been swinging the bat, I can really see any of them going deep off of him very easily. So I got that bet in that inning. And then I'm pretty much the rest of the week, I'm going to take the overs on the runs, and I'm going to bet White Sox pitching on all the strikeouts, on all of them. This is going to be a game where you kind of extend, Lynn's going to go 6, Gio's going to go 6. You expect everybody to kind of step up. And just a number to self, like one of my favorite bets to do is like the outs, like over 16.5, like not that hard. Do the math, 3 times an inning. All the overs over all those guys going over 4 innings. Like even Kopech, like I don't want Clevenger to drop. I don't want Kopech to go up. I want everybody to kind of build. This is a week for building momentum forward. Like Ryan, 7-3. Like if you're going to be competitive. Like distinct June to the All-Star break, you cannot put yourself in a situation in this week, probably the easiest week in the whole month of April. That you're coming off a really hot start, like pretty good start with a hard team. You need to take advantage of this because you can't. This is where then you're like, oh crap, I need to go 7-3, but I got Cleveland, the Yankees and Toronto. You're like, damn, like that's a little hard. Like you got to take advantage of these like weaker teams. Somebody's has to. Why not the Sox?
Well, yeah, and you got to think about it too. Like this Pittsburgh series this weekend is a great way to fix 2 problems that we have. Their lineup isn't good enough to where you're going to have trouble with inherited runners with your bullpen, and they don't have the pitching to really contain you with runners in scoring position. So you can hit a couple of free throws this weekend without putting somebody's shit on the batter's eye.
It's a confidence builder for sure. We need it.
Momentum is momentum, guys. People think that, you feel special when you beat the Yankees. You beat the Tigers. You feel momentum is momentum.
Hell yeah.
Winning streak. in the Major League Baseball. Those guys are going to feel it. The swag's going to feel it. And I think that right now they need to know that they're in this fight. Again, Pedro Grifol is figuring it out. So like when you go on a nice little run like that, you get a little bit more pep in your step. You get a little bit more confident. I really believe in that. I really believe that. And just as staff in general, because you're like, oh man, the stuff that we're doing is clicking. You're not second guess. You're not doing dumb stuff. Like I just saw probably Soto just went deep in Charlotte in shoebox field. And they're like, Soto, call him up now. It's like, yes, he is the future, but you signed out. Like, so like, I don't want people to just, I don't want to have a bad weekend, just people just trading everybody right away and just panicking. We don't need that second week in April.
And again, I want to highlight last week, not only the junior winner picked to click for the week 1, but he nailed all of the bets that we put on the show last week, at least the ones for the daily games, not the season bets.
I'm tired of him
daily
winning
games.
And by the way, I didn't tell you my Cleveland bets either, Jay. I also hit those.
So again, everyone follow Ian's World for your bets every weekend, and we'll try to put some bets on our show account.
Today, Detroit, don't ever bet. If I ever take a bet against the Tigers, do the opposite and bet the Tigers. It's the only team that I cannot bet against. Houston has now lost 2 games. Like Houston, they're losing games against the Tigers. That was supposed to be a lock today, and I just got. So if I tweet from any of the accounts betting against the Tigers, do the opposite. Go the other way. I can't beat the Tigers. They're my Cleveland. I need to overcome that monster. But again, be smart. Again, look at this. Look at the analytics. Look at the situations. And even like if in any of these games, because I'm going to be tweeting live, if the Sox for any reason fall back, even 4 or 5 runs, not a huge lead for any of these teams to hold them back. I still think the White Sox offense, like we saw the 12-3 game, you know, they were struggling 7-0, and then they came back for a bit. So this team has the power to come back in games. Again, we'll catch some good odds on that.
But even in game 4 versus Houston, like, you know, Sox, once they had a lead, you know, Houston would start to bounce back, and then the Sox would just add a couple more to tack onto their lead. So it's not even just coming from behind, but keeping that lead.
That's what good teams do, and that's what you need to be able to believe, that you play in that field. Like you have to believe. Like one thing is us telling them you're great, you're great, you're great, you're gonna, and then one other thing is them actually going in and believing in themselves. And a lot of guys are doing that. Colas, dude, the guy's in the big leagues. Like this is his dream. Like he's finally there. He wants to feel like he belongs. Got Andrew Vaughn. Like you don't think Andrew Vaughn's thinking like, they just got rid of one of the greatest players in White Sox history to make me the first baseman. Like he's pumped. Like he knows that he's like, they believe him and he wants to produce. So there's all these stories of, you know, you don't think TA knows that fans have been saying move him to second and move Elvis? Those guys all think that. And if you have a chip on your shoulder, the only guy that if he doesn't start hitting well, I'm going to have to get him on the fat boy diet again is Eloy. I don't like skinny Eloy unless he's hitting. If skinny Eloy can't hit like fat Eloy hit, I don't want him.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's for that. No, that's serious because like I like fat Luther Vandross. I don't like skinny Luther Vandross.
I'm just saying, but like Eloy's going to be in the outfield because he was fat and going to get hurt. The only time he got hurt was he made a stupid play, and he could have been a 5'4" midget in perfect shape, and if he would have climbed the fence like the way he did, he would have gotten hurt. It was just a dumb play. It's like drinking and driving. You know what you did wrong. You're an idiot. You usually wouldn't do it. 99.9% of the time, you did it that one time, you deserve to get in trouble. Yeah, correct. You know, Tony, like for example, Tony's nap. Bro, bad mistake to do it there. Everyone's tired. He took a nap, you got to pay the price for it. That's how so Eloy in the outfield was not because he did not get hurt because he was fat. So they made my boy go get skinny. He looks small. He looks great. He looks awesome. He looks like a model. But if he does not start producing, I will freaking ping him and say, you need to get back on fat boy diet. F these people. Fat boys can play 135, 140 games too. We need fat Eloy back to smash. That's it. Grandal, I like skinny Grandal. Fat Grandal couldn't hit. Skinny Grandal is badass.
All right. And now as we close out our own show here, Brian, give the chat and everyone listening here on the podcast after a chance of where your following is, and I'll give you some shout outs too. Shout out anything you want to. But go ahead and give us your own promotion here.
Just follow me on Twitter at Brian Knights 3. You're getting a post game every single game. Hopefully, a majority of them are QTM FEBs. Some electric stuff, a lot of Miller Lights, a lot of White Sox stuff, some gambling stuff. It's a lot of fun. Got some big things coming, so let's ride.
He's gonna start drinking Natty Ice. It's a switch. That's the secret.
That'd be aggressive.
That would be aggressive. That would be as an adult.
If my bets keep losing, I might have to.
Though. It's like, what do you switch to Natty Ice? If you switch to Natty Ice after the age of 30, something bad happened.
Yeah. If I start drinking Keystone next week, that you like
it's like college. It's like when you're under 18, it's like when you're like a kid, everything tastes great. The older you get, like, they don't have this in this foreign country. How can you not have my favorite drink? No, I love it. That's awesome. I'm going to say where I'm at, Ogie and Junior. If you're interested in buying bats for some reason, men's baseball out there, Morningwood. Yes, that's the name of the company, Morningwood.
It's a great name.
It's a great name. Use the Guillen code, the Guillen Grid, for 25% off. So why don't you think you're a legit baseball player when you go to the cage? Get your wood with your customized name on it, your name on it, your girlfriend's name on it, and they do all ages. So, which is awesome. Like, there's like 9-year-olds that have wood batting out with their name on it. It's like the world has changed so much. You had to be like a 10-time All-Star in 1989 to have your name on your bat. Now you're like a business model. It's a great business model. You're a 9-year-old and you're like, hey, I'm Joe Schmo. Get your own color. Again, I love it because you're gonna see these kids like rocking bats. Soon we might see the whole White Sox rocking out those green cleats that Moncada's been wearing. Horrendous looking, yet very effective.
Yeah. And right after you order your morning wood using the Guillen Grid promotional code, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're on Google Podcast and Apple Podcasts. My favorite personally to listen to these assholes is Spotify. I am Jay Targaryen signing off for Chris Gonzalez, Isaac Guillen Jr., and the Prince of Pershing himself, Brian Knights. This was The Blackout Show.